All right. Well, I think we're going to just get started. So welcome, everybody. So this is the day 3. I'm assuming that you've all been to day 1 and 2. So obviously, if you haven't done day 1, it's just kind of an overview of everything that we do. Day 2 is Jim showing you different sauces, different styles, telling you if your kitchen doesn't act like that, you need to let him know. That's kind of how it works. So day 3, we're just going to start talking about beverages. So the majority of your list, you always know this. I could ask you how many meal dishes you have. I could ask you, how many different sauces you could do. And all of you are very, very comfortable in telling me very quickly the answers to those. When I tell you, how many wines do we have? It's like, well, that's not true anymore. But
what?
Yeah.
Last week.
So, a couple things, and I don't know how long you guys have been with the company, but before we used to also have at the very top where you used to say white wines and then you used to say red wines. Now it's actually switched, so now I have all your glass pours at the top, you have all the bottles at the bottom. But here's the thing, how many of you actually drink wine? So obviously it's going to be a little bit easier for you. But the other half, or 2/3, that don't really drink wine, which is still fine, you just need to know it. At the same point, maybe you don't eat steak, or maybe you don't eat seafood because you have a shellfish allergy, but you still sell those. So when people say, hey, I can't sell these, I don't drink them, it's a cop-out. So what I'm going to try to teach you today is just how kind of easy it is to get to where we want to go as far as questions and how you can talk to a guest without feeling uncomfortable about doing it as well. First thing that we're going to do, though, is I just want you guys to introduce yourselves, just because I do know most of you, but I don't know everybody. So what I'd like to do is just say your name, where you're working, and really what your aspirations are in life. So please, begin.
I'm a server at Fenton. My aspirations.
So you undecided. It's all right. That's not a problem.
Basically, if I could move somewhere and live on the beach.
That's a good one. That's always a good one.
That's right now. This weather is making me feel that way. So.
My name is Ramona. I work at Benton, and my aspiration is probably one day to open up food truck to travel after my kids are in college. They're pretty close, so yeah.
Awesome.
Just travel and money.
My name is Jennifer, and I work at the Benton location. And I would like to travel a little bit. I've never been outside of anywhere but Ohio, so I have some.
You got some places to go. I guess the beauty is that sky's the limit on that one. So.
My name is Joanna. They call me JoJo. I'm a server at the Fenton location, and I've been contemplating about trying to move off the company.
Cool.
My name is Nicholas. I'm a server at the Fenton location. I just want to be the best at what I do. Right now I'm serving, and it looks like I'm going to be doing that for a little bit. So I'm going to work at being better at doing that.
Awesome.
My name is Amanda, and I'm a fine dining server at Bloomfield Restaurante, and my aspiration is to become a better version of myself every day and provide a great life for my family.
Hi, I'm Annabelle. I'm a server at Bloomfield as well. Aspirations, I just want to graduate college for the love of God, and yeah, travel and all that.
Awesome.
My name is Adrian. I work at the Riverfront location, and I'm a busser, belonging to server, and I would also like to travel the road.
Awesome. Very cool.
I'm Denise. I'm from Clarkston. I worked 29 years at the Palace, and that was pretty much my life, and I'm starting a new beginning, and I'm blessed to be able to be part of Amiamos.
Very cool. And so I'm assuming you were there ahead of time then?
Pardon?
You worked with Dan when he was there as well?
Yes.
He's a good guy.
Yes, he is. Wonderful. Michelle also. Yes.
My name is Lauren. I work at the Sterling Heights location. I'm a server, and I am on my way to becoming an elementary teacher, so one day I'm going to have my own classroom.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm Sterling Heights. I would like to travel one day. In the meantime, I just have to say something about bussers. I have 2 bussers that just moved. One to be a manager of a restaurant, and one is an engineer now, just leading on the Amos. So I would like to help the new people in the meantime be better.
Great.
Get ahead.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Kayla. I work at the Bloomfield location, and I would like to travel too as well, and also I would like to own my own restaurant someday.
Awesome.
My name is Rami. I'm the general manager in Dearborn. And just want to say something. I do see John in a class. Like we have a class with John every week. I haven't been in this one, and I just want you guys to know it's an amazing information what you got out of this man. And honestly, if you take notes, listen to every word he's saying. I've been in the company 3 months. I've learned so much about wine from John, actually. And I mean, I used to know about wine, but not all this information. So it's so benefit to you guys for this class, amazing. And I wanted to come like last month, I couldn't, and this is why I came today. And I really want to be in it. Every information in this or whatever John gives you guys is so important when you go to your restaurant, because you need to know about all this information. Guests ask questions, like what kind of wine we have, how many, how's this, how that. He will go over all this. You will find how important that is, and I just wish you guys good luck wherever you guys go.
Well, we missed the guy from behind the camera first. You better tell who you are so that everyone knows. Otherwise, it's just weird.
I'm Walter. I am a server, IT guy, open downtown Detroit, Joe Muir Seafood. Did I say that right? Joe Muir Seafood, downtown Detroit. I'm heading into IT. That's what I do. I'm a nerd, so here we are.
The reason I wanted to tie that in is, so obviously when I started with the company, I started at Joe Muir as a sommelier. Well, actually, I guess I should start at the beginning. I, just like everybody else, started in the restaurants. I had older brothers and sisters. They did it so they could go to school. So I was like, well, obviously that's what I need to do. While I go to college, I need to work in a restaurant. So I started when I was 15. I was a dishwasher. From dishwashing, then I became a line cook. And then after a line cook, I became a busser. After I was a busser, I was a server. Then I was a delivery guy. Then I was the bartender at 17, which I know is illegal, but that's what I was doing in Arizona. Moved back to Michigan, so I was originally from Michigan. What I realized is that I was just going to party every single day if I stayed out in Arizona. I was never going to go to class. So moved back, went to Eastern. While I was going to Eastern, I was working in a place called Ratzi. If any of you guys know, it's right downtown Ann Arbor. While I was there, I trained someone at every single position, both front and back of the house. Because I had aspirations of potentially, just before they had opened the Chop House and La Dolce Vita, they were going to have there was going to be one GM overseeing all 3 properties, and there was going to be a swing manager that was going to do both front and back of the house. So I was going to be the right-hand person to the GM. I was 23 at the time. So I was like, hey, perfect, that's the job I want. And they decided once they got into it a little bit, they realized that it was probably best to have GMs for all 3 locations. Position never materialized. Told them, hey, I want to go back to school, then I want to get my degree. Went back, got my degree. Kind of like Annabelle said, I was on the long track. It seemed like it took forever to get my degree. I did finally get it though in finance. When I did get it though, it was right after 9/11. So everything that I wanted to get into was completely shut off. So it was like, all right, what am I going to do? I was working at a place called the Number 6 Chop House, it was a Matt Prentice restaurant. For those of you who do not know, Madeline Trufant was the first female master sommelier in the nation. There are less than 200 master sommeliers in the nation right now. They say it is the hardest test in the world to pass. And working with her, there was another gentleman named Rick Rubel. He is a master's candidate. He now works down in South Carolina. And I said, hey Rick, I just need something to do. He's like, well, I'll teach you. He's like, I'm not going to pay you, but I'll show you what to do. So initially I just started putting away wine bottles. And then Maddie started showing me, okay, let's go to tastings. And then from going to trade shows, then it was, all right, let me show you how you price these out. Let me show you how we're going to put it on the list. And over time, I started to learn the skills. And then from the skills, eventually he ended up, like I said, moving to South Carolina. I ended up taking over the wine program at the Chop House. After that, I ended up going to MGM. So to MGM, which was Michael Mina. What you guys might not know is that Michael Mina is a Michelin-starred chef, but he's out in Vegas, so a lot of people don't really know who he is. But he has places in Washington, California, Arizona, now he has them in Washington, D.C., Florida, Michigan. But the Michigan one, obviously, was in the hotel, the casino. What I didn't know is that the casino gets that opportunity every 4 years. They do a collective bargaining agreement. And at that time, they can determine whether they want to keep them or they don't. Michael Mina was more expensive than Wolfgang Puck, without a doubt. I mean, the food that they served, everything like that. They realized they had a lot of guests that were the same people, and so they didn't want to continue to give comps for things that were really expensive. Michael Mina went away, Wolfgang came in. Let's just say that it's really interesting because then you obviously have to reapply, and it's a completely different company. Wolfgang is, and not, there's anything wrong with it. I'm not going to badmouth any company. What I will say is the things that Michael Mina did were excellent. They excelled in everything that they did. So if they were opening a restaurant, you knew exactly the takeaway that they were going to have. You knew exactly the glasses they would use because they used them for every single location. So there's never a question about what it was. You also then had to know who the GM was at each one of the locations. You need to know who the corporate managers were. So I mean, all these trainings were in place. And then they had Raj Parr, who's actually a master sommelier as well. So it was a great company to work for. Anyway, through that, I ended up going to Joe Muir. I was a sommelier there. In the process, you know, Walter just was like, hey, let me just show you something that I've been working on. Started putting together this, just, it was really kind of archaic at first. You know, it's just, hey, if you click on this, it'll be a link that shows you the text sheets to all the wines. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I'm like, now tell me one server that actually reads a text sheet. Have you guys ever seen a text sheet? Usually, it could be about a page. Sometimes it's 2 pages. There's actually paragraphs in there. There's technical jargon. And everyone's like, oh, great, thank you very much. And they just throw it away. I mean, that's, and don't get me wrong, I used to do it when I was a server too. I mean, it is, you're like, wow, I don't want to read this. So we started thinking about it, we're like, how can we actually do something that you guys might actually use? So if you guys haven't been on the website, I'm going to show you the website today as well. But the website is supposed to be just that. You go on it, it actually has the name of it, it shows what section of the menu it's in, what the bin number is, what the vintage is, how you actually pronounce it, which is a really big thing because a lot of times we don't say things properly. And then after all that, it also has information. It'll tell you a little bit about where it was made, whether it was estate fruit, whether it was sourced, whether it was co-opt, and we'll kind of talk about those terms as well and why they're important. And then, you know, how it kind of came about. So sometimes people also want to hear a story. So as you were mentioning, everybody likes to travel, right? When I was a kid, my parents were in education, so growing up, we never had any money, but we always had summertime vacations. So as a kid, while everybody else was, you know, water skiing and doing fun things like that, you know, I was camping somewhere. And as a kid, I was like, that sucks. But as I got older, I started realizing it was great. Because by the time I graduated, I'd been to all but 2 states. And the really difficult thing is that if you think about other countries, like if you think of Spain and Italy and Germany, and all of them would be almost like if you were going to Indiana or Ohio or to Chicago, or excuse me, Illinois. But the thing is, you have to get a passport. They might be speaking a different language. They might be, and so here, if we have enough gas money, we could just hop in the car right now and just drive to San Diego and say, hey, have you ever seen the Pacific Ocean? And when you actually have done it though, and you actually can smell it, and you can see it, and you can feel it, you're like, wow, this means so much more. And so, for me personally, I have a lot of, like I said, I have a lot of brothers and sisters. The one claim to fame, so my mom had 5 kids. She had 3 boys and 2 girls. All of us ended up putting ourselves through college, so we didn't get a dime from any of our parents. But the thing is, too, is that all 5 of us graduated from 5 different high schools. So that's also a little odd. Usually when people are in education, they stay in one spot because that means that they're kind of building your tenure. So we ended up moving around quite a bit. And through that process, though, you started to realize things that are kind of important. And for me, as opposed to reading them in books, which obviously you can do, I don't really retain as much. When you're actually touching, seeing, smelling, learning, that's how I actually learn. So I was fortunate in this position. So like I said, I started 2013 as the sommelier at Joe Muir. After that, I ended up becoming the GM the year after. Then I became the corporate beverage director the year after that. So I guess that was, 2015. I did that for 1 year, trying to do all the jobs. And I said, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. So they ended up giving the position to a guy named Joey. Then it went to Chad. And now I'm back to doing it again. There's more infrastructure now, so it's better placement, the way that it's actually done. So I still work at Joe Muir on the weekends, and then I work at all the animals during the week. So, but through the process, like I said, I've talked to Walter and said, hey, Walter, what do you want to do? And Walter's a very intelligent person, but you could also see that he was very troubled and things were bothering him. And ultimately he said, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to use my brain. I don't want to just wait tables. Perfect. Let's figure out what you want to do. So here's the thing. Is there anything wrong with waiting tables? Absolutely not. We have one server downtown, makes 6 figures, works, I don't know, probably 4 shifts a week. And literally, here's how he does it. And make all of his regulars. Now, granted, he's been in the industry for a long time. But all those people actually request him. He has one group that comes in there from Canada. It's a 6-stop. They sit at table 3 or 4. If you've ever been to Joe Muir, you know what tables those are. They aren't considered to be the most desirable. I've never seen a bill less than $3,000. So I've also never seen them give them less than $1,000. So the point being is that if you, to Nicholas's point, if that's what job you're doing at that time, do it the best you possibly can. When I was in Ann Arbor, one thing that I saw happen more times than not is that if your service was great, and obviously you could be waiting, you don't know who you're waiting on. I had 4 friends that actually got their jobs out of college from the people they were waiting on. Because you're like, wow, you're going to school, blah, blah. They start having that conversation. Well, what is your major? And they start saying, hey, I'm doing blah, 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 blah. And they're like, hey, give me a call when you're done. They got their jobs because they did their job well. So what I hear sometimes people go, oh, I'm not going to be a server forever. I'm going to be, okay. Well, which is great. But you could also be losing out because when people go, hey, what's your major? And you're like, oh, I'm in this. And they're like, well, you sucked at what you just did now. So I'm definitely not hiring you for the position that you think you're going to be good at. Mm-hmm. So the point is no matter what you're doing, do it as well as you possibly can. Because you never know who's actually watching. And they can make a difference in your life. So for me, I've never really traveled abroad. Since doing this job, I've gone to Italy. I just last year went to Argentina. Went to Santa Cruz Mountains. All those were paid for by the companies that I went with. So I was able to do some really cool stuff. If any of you guys have tasted Ridge Montebello or have heard of it, it is considered to be one of the better wines that's made in America. Right now, the current cost of a bottle of Ridge Montebello, our cost, is $175. So the dinner that I went to, there was 12 sommeliers from around the nation. We ended up going to this place. It was called Plume Course. It's one of the, if you ever looked at a Wine Spectator magazine, they have Grand Award winners. There's less than 100 restaurants that are Grand Award winners. We went to a Grand Award winning restaurant. They ended up doing 5 courses for us, and we ended up tasting, let's see, what was it? 04, 94, 84, 74, 64 of Ridge Montebello. That was what they were breaking out for us. Pretty cool. And what did I have to do? It was just knowing how to do my job. I got to meet other people. I was networking. They actually took us up on their mountain because it's really neat because you're overlooking and you get to see where Google is. You get to see where Stanford is. I mean, literally on their mountain, it's 2,500 feet above, and you literally are just looking over this valley and you get to see where everything is. And now you can also see why things are so expensive in Silicon Valley. As much as I enjoyed it, I could never live there. And what they're finding is too, is that in California, there's so many places that obviously need to have service, they need to have staff, they need to have, but they can't afford to live in those areas. So they're all living in Temecula and driving really long distances to get to where they need to go. You can come join us, please. I've got these glasses poured right here for you. So, I don't know if you guys have ever been to San Diego. It is the most beautiful city in the nation, in my opinion. Of all the ones that I've been to, that's my favorite. I had a buddy that got married at the Catamount Hotel. Like I said, I was living in Phoenix. That day, it was 121 degrees in Phoenix. In San Diego, it was 74. Temperature never really changes in San Diego. Every single day, there's fog that hangs out till 10:30. It completely blows away, and then it never gets above 74. Everyone just hangs out on the beach. It gets to about, 62 at night. I mean, it's pretty awesome. So, but what I also found is there was a house that was for sale right there. It was, I think it was 600 square feet. I think they literally had less of a front yard than the carpeting right here. They didn't have a garage, and it was $750,000 because it was just right that close to the beach. I mean, literally you could walk to the boardwalk. So I mean, that part's very cool. That's where I realized, okay, I'm not going to be living in the same here. But all right, so the first thing that I want to talk about, because this is what we really are here to talk about. One thing that I didn't mention to you, we are going to have an abbreviated day today. We are not going to be talking about liquor or beer. You are going to have a new rollout as liquor, I believe, April 1st. So we are going to have a shortened day, which is good for everybody. I have somewhere I got to be as well. So, first thing, I am going to choose a wine, and then you guys are going to try to figure out how to get there. Okay? So here's the thing. I know that sometimes it's scary. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to have Walter do it. That way we can kind of work together. So, Walt, please, look at that. Choose a wine. Now, here's the thing. It's also important that we are staying in what would be one thing that we want to know about the wine list before we even talk about anything else. How's it structured?
Like, is it like a full body, full body, is that what it is?
So lightest to fullest, absolutely. What else can you talk about the menu just that would be helpful? So, what's that?
Oh, like, I was going to ask you a question. Like,
sure.
For example, like, is it crisp? How do it smell? How does it pair with different types of foods? Like
sure. I mean, all those are great points. So the first thing that I want you to think about is, like I said, everything is going to be a math equation. As soon as you start learning the math equations, everything becomes easier. Everything's about confidence as well. I mean, here's the thing. I know you guys know this as well. There's some people that you probably work with that you're like, man, that person is an idiot. But yet, they go to a table and go, oh my gosh, you're going to love this wine. People buy it. They never turn it away. You might be the smartest person. You might have the most knowledge. But you kind of go to the table and you're a little bit more, I don't know, maybe you should get this one. Maybe it might be a good choice. And they're like, I really didn't care for that wine. But yet you're the one who knows the information. So it's amazing how much, and this is true of anything in life, the more confidence you actually have and exude at your table, the more that they're going to actually trust you. Now, having said that, you also have to be able to answer a question. Because you can't, if someone says, hey, do you guys have any Chablis on the list? Or hey, do you like Chardonnay? And you're like, no, I don't like Chardonnay, but, I like Burgundy, white Burgundy. Well, white Burgundy is Chardonnay. So obviously you're lying to them. Or if you look at Chablis, that's how it's spelled. But if you say, yeah, I love Chablis, I'm not going to ask any more questions because you really don't know what you're talking about. So that's why it's so important that A, you listen to how you actually pronounce those things. That's why I want you to use the website that Walter's built. Because here's the thing, how many times do you think that people probably don't order a Verdicchio or a Vermentino or Garganega because they don't know how to pronounce the grape varietals? So they're just like, that whole section, and it isn't just your store, it's every single store that we have. Nobody sells the Italian white section, with the exception of maybe a Pinot Grigio here and there, because we can all say Pinot Grigio. I'm here to tell you something. Pinot Grigio is the least interesting of all the Italian grape varietals that there are. So what I want you guys to think of is how can you educate people without making them feel stupid? Because really that's what our job is. There's nothing worse than a server who is pompous and arrogant and like, I can't believe that you're drinking that,
Tell the story.
I mean, who are you, right? I mean, how many of you guys started drinking Mad Dog? How many of you guys started drinking Franzia? Boone's Farm? Absolutely. How many people had White Zinfandel probably as their first wine that they used to drink? Then you started probably drinking Riesling. So, who are you to start making fun of somebody who's actually drinking those things? For me personally, when I was a server, and believe me, I was a server for, probably 10 years. And I always thought that the key to being the best server was to be able to take all these tables and nobody needed to help me out. And it didn't happen until the very end when I started realizing that had nothing to do with how good of a server you are. It meant that I could do all the steps properly, I wasn't making mistakes on the computer, but I wasn't paying attention. I had a gentleman that, one of my best friends, who trained me at the Chop House. And he would be able to come to a table notice the andiamo hat, notice the ring, notice and he would talk. He would hit on the woman. He would say good things to the guy. At the end of the night, the guy would end up giving him like 25%, say, hey, I can't wait for you to take care of us again. Yeah. At the same time, while he was hitting on us. Now, I don't say that that's a good thing for everybody to do. But the simple fact of the matter is that he could look there and go, and he would say, John, did you see that guy? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, that guy's got a $40,000 watch on. I'm like, number one, that's just stupid that people have $40,000 watches. I mean, that's more than my car costs, and he's wearing it on his wrist. But Tori could pick those up. He's like, that's Pat Fleet. He's like, so he would go and he'd compliment the guy on his watch, go, man, that's the coolest watch that I've seen. Some of the guys would just be like, hey, here you go, wear it around, do whatever. It was bizarre stuff. But the simple fact of the matter was he understood what it was about, what the service is about. The service is supposed to make people feel really comfortable and good about their decisions. There's other service that we have that they really will say, oh my gosh, this is great. And then as you're pouring it, you're almost giving, isn't that really good? That's exactly how I told you it was going to. And you're giving affirmation with your head as you're kind of like a bobblehead. If you're kind of like, what do you, you're giving those people that opportunity to say, yeah, I didn't really care for it either. So it's amazing how those little things actually count. That's where we're also going to talk about later. That's why you should also be leaving your wine bottles on your tables at all times. Because literally, it is like having a little hotel. And so like Bloomfield, everybody in Bloomfield knows each other, right? And everybody wants to be better than their neighbor. So if they're walking into the dining room and they see that there's a wine bottle, there's a wine bottle, there's a wine bottle, they're looking at what they are. They go, okay, I saw what they spent, and now I'm going to buy the bottle of Silver Oak and then invite them over to my table. You know? Oh, yeah, this is what we're drinking. You know what I mean? So it's so important. That's why I don't care if it's even Andiamo Cab. Leave it on the table because it's actually going to be the stepping stone for the very next thing that you're going to actually have. With today being Wednesday, and I think you guys probably don't do it, but everybody else, you guys are doing wine Wednesday. So it's a huge day. I mean, you should never ever have a guest drinking a glass of wine. Because you say, hey, even if it was Andiamo Shark, that costs what, $9, I believe? I think that's what the cost is. Yeah. So you'd say, for $18, would you rather have the bottle? I mean, if that doesn't sell it, I don't know what else does. You say, hey, you don't even cork it, you can take it home with you. You're still going to get, twice as much.
I always say the second two are free.
Yeah, you can say that too. I mean, word it however you want, but I mean, the idea is that also then opens up the whole list. I mean, really, Wednesdays, you should all want to work Wednesdays. For me personally, when I was a server, I don't know about you guys, but I would track everything that I did. So I can tell you Tuesdays were my best days. I can tell you the month of May was my best month every single year because I'm also affected by weather. I wanted to live on a beach. So when it finally started to warm up, my personality would show because it was a long freaking winter. And then Mays, I would just kill it. I would make so much money because I was finally happy because it was finally getting warm outside again. But you should start tracking all of your stuff. You should look at that. Since Wednesdays are the day that you actually have Wine Wednesdays, you should say, I want to work every Wednesday and sell bottles every single Wednesday. I mean, simple stuff. All right. So, Walter, you picked your wine, correct? So the first thing that you want to do, and Amanda did kind of say the number, but it is incorrect. The number that and I want you to do this. And each one of the restaurants is different. So in Fenton, your number is 80. For Clarkston, Livonia, Sterling Heights, and Clarkston, Livonia, Sterling Heights, and Warren, the number is 81. For Bloomfield and Dearborn, it is 84. For the Riverfront, it's 104. So, you really just need to know the numbers. Everything's about numbers. So, what is the first question we're going to ask Walter? Without having any knowledge. Red or white? Red or white, that's pretty simple, right? Well, is that a red or white, sir?
I think I'd like to go white wine today.
So white wine, how many does that leave us with? On the list you guys have in front of you, that leaves us with 23. There's also the sparkling wine, so I guess we could add that since, so that's another 5. That means we have 28 wines. So what's our next question going to be? Once again, we don't really have to have any knowledge at this point. You can do a light bottle. So here's the thing, with red wines, that's obviously going to be the easiest one. With white wines, it becomes a little bit more tricky because we could ask a couple different ways. We could either ask if you want it sweet, you could also ask if you want it distilled or sparkling. So how about we actually start with that? Would you like it to be sparkling, sir, or are you doing a still wine?
Still is fine.
All right, perfect. So we just got rid of those 5. So now we're going to ask, obviously, if you wanted to do maybe sweet or dry, you could do you like it with oak? Do you like it to be unoaked? So what version of that would you like to start with? Okay, so sweet or dry. So you say, would you like it sweet like a Riesling? Would you like it to be a little bit dry and fuller bodied like a Chardonnay?
I'm looking for something a little drier.
Okay, so how many wines did we just get rid of? And you guys got the list in front of you, so this isn't something that I'm just like making up to you. So we just got rid of our, now here's the one thing, you got to also remember, you have the white wines by the glass, and then you have the ones below, right? So we just got rid of the Riesling, Bauerhaus, Spatlese, for sure. How would you classify Sauvignon Blanc? Well, and so
The Bauerhaus steak is sweet though.
well, and so see, this is a great point, and that's why I also wanted to have this kind of discussion, right? 98% of wine is going to be dry. So when people ever say sweet, there's really only a small amounts that are. Obviously, Moscato is. If we have Rieslings, they are. You can have things that are going to be off dry as well, like our Vouvray is going to be an off dry wine. So yes, it is technically going to be a dry wine. But how would you then, since it is a dry wine, and he said he wanted something that's a little bit drier in style, we could then also ask, so you kind of add prodding questions to that. So you could ask, first we'd say, do you want oak, do you want unoaked, would be another question we could ask. So so you could say, Siri, would you like that to be a little bit crisper, cleaner, or would you like something that's going to be a little bit fuller with oak?
I like a crisper style wine, actually.
Right. Perfect. So what does that mean we just got rid of?
Chardonnay.
Yep. I mean, you could obviously still keep the Andiamo cellars. You could still keep the Pascal Renault, just because there aren't any oak in on those. But my guess is just by that leading question that we probably wouldn't even talk about those, because sometimes people just view that Chardonnays are always going to be oak. So now you could always, if you have the information, you could obviously add that in when we start talking. So how many wines are we still left?
2.
Well, so at this point we still haven't gotten rid of any of the Italian whites. So how are we going to ask the question? So right now you have probably about 10 to 23 still. So what kind of question can we get that number down again without really knowing anything? I mean, have we done anything that's really hard to do? All this is a map. And if you understand how to read a map, then you can get the person where they want to go. And you can say these intelligently, you can say them just quickly, concisely, and they are going to actually get more and more confidence in you because you're able to answer those questions for them. So the next thing we might want to ask, and so there's a difference between Old World and New World, right? So Old World wines, and this is generalization because obviously there's going to be, so one thing I'm going to tell you about wine, you're never going to be able to say always, and you're never going to be able to say never. And there's always going to be an exception to any rule. But traditionally speaking, Old World wines, which are going to be your European wines, so that is going to be Germany, it's going to be Spain, it's going to be France, it's going to be Italy. Now obviously you'd also add Greece, and I mean they're actually making wine out of China, India. We're not really talking about those because we're not going to carry any of those. Old World wines traditionally are going to be more subtle as far as the fruit is concerned. They have a little bit more mineral or earthy styles to them, and they traditionally are going to have a little bit higher acidity. Now,
I'm sorry, you said more subtle than what?
the subtle fruit has a little bit more earth and minerality, and traditionally it has a little bit higher acidity. Now, when I say that, there are certain grape varietals that are going to have naturally high acidity. So, like for instance, Sauvignon Blanc has very high acidity. So, whether that's New World or Old World, they're always going to have high acidity. So, that's where I want you to at least please listen to me and say, John said, no, please understand that there's certain varietals that are always going to be high regardless of where they're at. But traditionally, that's how that will go. Now, New World is going to be, so really, if you think about it, it's almost like a teeter-totter, right? So New World means that it's going to be more forward fruit. Traditionally, it has a little bit higher alcohol. And traditionally, it's going to have a little bit less acidity. But once again, depending on varietals, you're going to obviously have plenty of acidity in those as well. So sir, the wine that you are looking for. Would you like something that is going to be a little bit more mineral driven, a little bit earthier in style, or do you want something that's going to be a little bit more fruit forward?
Looking for a fruitier style wine, something a little bit more New World essence.
Perfect. So, what does that mean? We just got rid of the section none of you guys wanted it to go to because you wouldn't have answered the questions right anyway. So we just got rid of all the 2,500. So we're, whew, sigh of relief. You didn't go that direction. So we just got rid of those. So what are we left with? So that means we got rid of Trebbiano. We got rid of Pinot Grigio. Riesling's gone because we said that was too sweet. We got rid of our Chardonnays. We've gotten rid of all of Vermentino, Cortese, Garganega, Pinot Grigio, Verdicchio, Frucchetto. That's how you pronounce all those, by the way. And here's the thing, is you should practice those at home, at the mirror sometimes, because really, if you say them out loud, sometimes people might be like, oh, cool, I'll try that. Because they're afraid to say it themselves. But if you said, hey, the Vermentino was phenomenal, and if you're looking for Pinot Grigio, I would recommend that instead. It's a little bit layered style. It's good. So what do we have now? We have Pinot Gris, we have Fumé Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc. Like I said, Chenin Blanc is going to be too sweet and style. You could, if you'd like. Go ahead. Yeah, why not? So, what is our next question that we get asked Walter? Because at this point, we still haven't had to ask anything that would make us have to have any knowledge, really. But here's the thing. We've said that, and now we've gone from 81 wines to what, 4? Yeah. And how much knowledge did you have to have that? None. I mean, it's already kind of laid out in the order. So, what is our next question going to be? So, we're still kind of stuck at this point because we don't know, is he doing Pinot Gris? Is he doing Sauvignon Blanc? So how do we decipher the difference between Pinot Gris and Sauvignon Blanc?
Want something a little more complex, a little more longevity to it.
Well, so that, well, and so if we really think about it too, the Schlumberger is from France, so that is going to be an old world wine. So that one's probably not going to be what we're looking for. He did say that he wanted something that's going to be a little bit more on the fruity style. So that means we're more than likely at Sauvignon Blanc. So if we're at Sauvignon Blanc, we could then, if you're kind of almost feeling that, so you could also say, do you like something that's going to be maybe zingy, has a little bit of really kind of refreshing, mouth-watering like a Sauvignon Blanc. So you can kind of ask that question because, once again, it's almost like playing a game of Clue, right? Because he's going to give us an answer yes or no. So, sir, do you care for Sauvignon Blanc, or do you like that style of wine?
I actually really enjoy Sauvignon Blanc.
Perfect. Now that means how many Sauvignon Blancs are on this list?
3.
We have 4. Fumé Blanc is also Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh, yeah.
So they ended up, years ago, in America, we ended up adding a little bit of oak to it and then calling it Fumé Blanc, giving it a little different name and thinking that was going to be a great seller. It does sell well, but the problem is it's also confusing that people don't realize that they're drinking Sauvignon Blanc either. So now we have 4 Sauvignon Blancs, correct? We also know that the Lurton is from France. That's probably not what he wants. Now that this is with 3, we're down to 3. So now how can we figure it out without having any knowledge? I mean, once again, it's just kind of what we're just talking about generalizations at this point. And so I'm going to add the French one just because. So really, once again, if we're talking about a teeter-totter, right? So on the left side here, we have New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. What does New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc taste like? They don't have one before?
Yeah.
It's literally like taking a pink grapefruit off of a tree and eating it. They're like super fresh grapefruit, over the top. It's very bombastic. It's very large in style. Now on the other side of the teeter-totter, you have Lurton. Lurton is still going to have grapefruit, but it's going to be far more subtle. It's going to have much more minerality. So when we talk about minerality, and my great-grandmother used to live in Petoskey, so we used to go up there and we used to find Petoskey rocks all the time. Had I realized that you can actually make a business of that and sell those things, I would have done that. But I didn't. We just skip them and whatever and go about our day. For whatever reason, maybe I'm just a stupid kid, but I used to lick the rocks. By licking the rocks, though, you can taste the minerality. If you've never done that, if you've ever been by a waterfall and you actually see the water actually hitting the rocks that are by it, and it kind of sprays off like that. You can smell the minerality. If you still don't know what I'm talking about, if you've ever been to someone jackhammering concrete and you can smell the crushed rocks actually in the air, that's what minerality is. So when you're talking about minerality, that's what it is. Now, obviously, there's going to be different stuff to that as well, because when we talk about Nebbiolos, they're actually going to smell like tar, so it almost smells like they're putting down fresh asphalt. So there's a completely different style of minerality there. There's certain lines that actually have almost like an iron ore quality, where you cut your finger and you start bleeding. You know, you suck on your finger until you can get a Band-Aid, and you can almost taste that little bloody iron ore thing. That's minerality. So you can't just say minerality, because there's many different aspects of what minerality can be. Then you have the two California ones. So we have the Fumé Blanc, and we also have the Duckhorn. As you can see, there's a price difference. Fumé Blanc has a little bit of oak to it. Duckhorn does as well. And so these are the things that if you started going to the one page, you'll start realizing. One thing that makes them different, Duckhorn actually adds a little bit of Semillon. Semillon is a grape that they add in Bordeaux. I believe that the Lurton has it as well. Semillon is spelled Semillon. So if you've ever looked at the chart, it kind of shows what the grape varietals look like, correct? There's a thing called DeLong. It's almost like a vintage chart. So it looks like a periodic table. We have 160 wines on it. We have it downtown. That's one of the training tools that we use. You've got that on the website, though, right, Will?
Yes.
So it's on the website. If you've ever gone, you can actually see it. Now, that's not all the grape varietals. I'll let you know that. In Italy alone, there's over 5,000 grape varietals. So the 140 on that list are really not going to cover it, but it covers enough of it that you can kind of understand. Semillon, though, is going to be a darker skinned grape. Doesn't mean it's the fullest of all the white wines. It just means that it's going to be darker in color. Whereas if you look at Sauvignon Blanc, it's going to be a lighter hue. So because of that, you're going to have a little bit more weight, a little bit more texture to the Duckhorn than you are to the Ferrari Crown. So our next question, without really, like I said, having a whole lot of information, we could say, sir, have you ever had a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand? It's going to be very high in grapefruit. Do you like that style, or would you like something that's a little bit more like California? It's going to be a touch more reserved.
You know, I've always done California Sauvignon Blanc, but I'd like to try something a little bit, as you said, with a more grapefruit essence. That sounds good.
Perfect. So we kind of lucked out because we were able to get there without a whole lot of knowledge on it, right? But we asked the questions, and all we did was just ask the questions. So at this point, all we did use was generalities. Now, if you did say you wanted California, that's where we would have to know the difference between the two. But really, that would be the only one that we really had to know anything about. So we're going to play that game again, but we're going to end up having someone choose a red, because red's a little bit more challenging. But the idea is that you guys should play the game with each other as well at your units. And what you need to do as well is start, I don't know. So for me personally, the reason I actually got into wine, if you've ever been to Ann Arbor, there are a ton of wine shops. And all the prettiest girls that I worked with like wine. So it just made sense for me to start drinking wine myself because they were drinking. So that obviously wasn't my first choice. I mean, I'd rather drink beer, I'd rather drink tequila, but it just made sense. And from it, I started realizing, hey, this is kind of fun. And now it's taking me to Italy and to Argentina. So it's been really good to me. And I guess the point being is, too, is that why I wanted you guys to figure out what you wanted to be. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to be. And I still don't even completely know what I want to be. But the idea is you should always have a focus. You should always have a goal. So maybe just having heard some of the experiences and some of the things that I do, maybe like, wow, you know, that sounds cool. You know, he used to drink wine pretty much every day. He used to travel around. Like today, I'm actually going to a trade show. If it weren't today, I would tell you guys to go to it, and I'll let you know in the fall when it actually happens. But Carmela actually puts on a trade show every year. They do a food and wine trade show, and they do offer our staff to go. Most of them don't want to have a ton of staff that go, but because they're also, if you guys did not know, Carmela is actually related to the Viccaris, because Rosalie's brother actually runs Carmela. So because of that, we always kind of have an open invite. So it's from 10 to 5, and it's really neat because they do tons and tons of food things, but they also have last show, I think there was over 400 wines there. So, what I will recommend to you if you ever go to those things is spit wine. You don't try to drink them. The very first one I didn't know, you know, and I didn't want to act stupid, so, you know, Rick took me to this one, and I'm like, oh, cool, you know, and I'm going, and, you know, it got, like, down the road, you know, and he kind of looks at me, and he's like, dude, have you? And I'm like, no. And I'm just kind of like this a little bit, you know, and I'm like, all right, I learned my lesson. So, the other thing is, as well, is even if you do have a palate that you start learning, you're going to get palate fatigue. It's impossible for you to drink 400 wines and not start to have fatigue. So, yesterday there was a tasting out in Ann Arbor that I went to. There was 50 wines that we tasted, and it was all Burgundies, which was very cool. They had some Clos and Tart, which our cost is $450. So sometimes it's really cool because you get to taste things that you don't get to see all the time. They also had some Echezot, which is 165 bottles. So they also had some very inexpensive Macon Villages, which could potentially become glass pours with one of the units. So it's really important, and it also helps you kind of, it's neat when you taste them side by side, because you really get to see the differences between them as well. All right, well, let's pick up a glass. I mean, it's about time to start talking about wine, right? So, just so you guys know, if you're ever doing a wine dinner, anything like that, and this is true of, well, I don't know if you guys here. When you are ever doing a wine dinner, the water glass is almost like you're out of bounds. So every glass should be to the left of your water glass. And this is true of whether it's a wine dinner, whether it's just a regular, so let's say that you ordered a martini. You should not set the martini glass over here. Martini, and so in this scenario, if you have to move something, you want to move it like a chess piece. You don't pick them up. So in this case, I would just slide your glasses like so. And I can slide this one back a little bit more, and then I would have room where I would set this down. So every time that you're doing it as well, that's why I'm left-handed. I don't know how many people, who's left-handed? Anybody? Yeah, we're weird, I know that. I don't know if you guys know this, we're supposedly smarter. We also die 5 years quicker than people who are right-handed.
My boyfriend is left-handed, he's definitely not smart.
Well, here's the thing though too, is that it takes us a lot more time to mature as than ladies do. So. But the thing is that you're always supposed to have your tray in your left hand. And the reason being is that you're always supposed to be then setting down your cocktails with your right hand. Let's say that you used a big tray because there was a ton of cocktails. Just still fine. You still need to be standing in this spot because at the same time what you're supposed to be doing is supposed to be an open stance. So you don't want to have your elbow in somebody's face. So let's say conversely, I couldn't get around that table. This would be the only time where you'd actually be using your left hand because then you'd place it this way. Now once again, that's only if you couldn't get around the table. If I could get to this side right here, then that's where I would be setting it down right here. Drinks. Correct. Drinks. So, having said that, wine number 1 is going to be your wine closest to your water glass. Wine number 2 will be in the middle. Wine number 3 will be the farthest away. Everybody understand that? Yeah. Right. So, let's pick up. What I want you to do is I want you to smell all 3 of them before we even taste them. Alright, so what are you guys smelling? So here's the thing. First things that I want you to do, you should always just take your initial reaction to it, right? So the first one, does it smell like it's an old world or new world?
New world. New world.
And if you're saying new world, why are you saying new world?
That's straightforward.
Okay? So, real quick on that then, if it's fruit forward, what fruit are you smelling before anything else? What's that?
She said grapes.
I mean, grapes still work, but so And I'm not saying that you're wrong. Does anyone feel this could be an old world? If you think that it's old world, why? What is the first smell that you smell?
It's kind of like a, grassy or gassy, kind of like minerality.
Okay.
Smell to it.
Okay. All right. So then wine number 2. Let's just smell that real quick. Are we thinking that's old world or new world?
Oh,
And if you're saying old, why are you saying old?
it smells either earthy or nutty or something.
Okay. And then what about number 3? Are you saying old or new on number 3?
Yeah.
And if you're saying new, what is it? What smell comes out first?
I feel like I smell like strawberries or apples.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Apples and butter. Yeah. Who doesn't like apples and butter?
Smell butter.
So to me, and actually, it's really key to me because it actually does. To me, it smells like butter popcorn. It also smells a little bit like melon. So that could be an indicator of what actual wine you're actually smelling. So here's one other thing as well. To Amanda's point, which is frustrated because she's not smelling some of the things that we're smelling. There's a guy named.
This happens every time, I swear. I smell the exact opposite of everyone else.
Well, and so this could be the reason why. There's a gentleman named Evan Goldstein who's a master sommelier. And he talks about how there's 4 different palates. So there's people who like sweet, there's people who like salt, there's people who like heat, there's people who like bitter. So me personally, I like things that are spicy. So if I like something that's spicy, to me, a jalapeno might taste like a bell pepper. But to you, it might taste like a jalapeno, or excuse me, a habanero. So because of that, when you taste something, I'm going to be like, oh, this is great. And someone will be like, oh my gosh, it's so hot, I can't believe you're having it. So the same thing is true. For me, I don't like things that are like super salty. So if something's really salty, people will be like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like salt, like I can't eat this. So, so because of that, there are going to be certain people that are going to taste and smell different things. It doesn't mean that they're right or wrong. It just means that that's what they smell. Here's the thing too. As I talked about, so what are there? There's probably 30 major resorts out in Vegas, I would say, roughly. I think there's only 4 master sommeliers that are at those units. There's one guy who's tried to become a master sommelier 10 times. He's taken the exam 10 times.
There's me.
And so here's the thing. Is he getting paid less because he's not a master sommelier? I mean, if he's at one of those resorts as the top guy, he's making really, really good money. So it's not really the end of the world. So for him, really, it's just something that he wants to do, where it's like, I have to complete this. So if you guys don't know, to become a master sommelier, there's a 3-part test. You have a theory test where you have to know all the grapes of Russia, just crazy things that you wouldn't know otherwise. There's a practical test where literally there would be a table like this. They would tell you to start talking about different varietals. They tell you to start pouring wine for 12 people. What would you pair with this? I mean, just kind of takes you all around. And then the last part of the test is they put 6 glasses in front of you, kind of like the 3 here, and there'd be 3 behind it. There's usually 3 white, 3 red. And you have 25 minutes to determine what vintage, varietal, region the wine you have in front of you. And that's why there's so few people that actually have passed the exam. So Madeline, like I said, was the first female master. She passed her advanced that same weekend. She passed her master, which they don't even allow that to happen anymore. So if you've never ever met her, she's the coolest lady ever, and she's so nice. So if you ever get into wine and you want to start, she is the buyer at Plum Market on Orchard Lake in Macon. As for Madeline, what I would say is, hey, I want to start studying. I have $300. Could you please get me things that are wines that they would actually be testing? Because what's really interesting is the master sommeliers, they spend more time trying to figure out if the wine would be considered proper for the region, proper for the vintage, proper for the... So they're not going to give you, a blend like a Chateauneuf du Pape Blanc blend in that flight. It's going to be a Riesling from a true area that would actually sell these. It would be a true Pinot Grigio that's considered to be one of the better examples of Pinot Grigio. They have a Chardonnay that's considered to be a good example of Chardonnay. So they're not trying to fool you, but they want you to understand how and what they smell like and taste like, and so it's fun and nerve-wracking all. All right, so now the one thing that I want you to also realize is that when you first smell wines, and like if you start to determine, like Amanda, what did you say the first one was? You said it was New World.
New World.
So if she said it was New World, what she might start doing then is going, okay, I think this is fruit forward, it's going to have this, this, and this, and she starts then putting things into that character to make it what she wants it to be. So the real key is to just use your nose and let that kind of guide you, as opposed to going, I want this to be Sauvignon Blanc, so I'm going to start smelling grapefruit, and it's going to start having, and so you can start telling yourself it's going to be something without it actually being there, which is kind of the biggest trap. And believe me, all of us do it. So, all right, so let's smell it one more time. Wine number one. So, the one thing that I will actually agree with Amanda is that it smells kind of acidic, sweet, almost in style. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like when you first smell this wine, it starts to make my mouth water a little bit. And if you guys don't know, your sensory glands are right back here. So before you even taste this, if you go, think about taking a bite of a lemon. Think about taking a bite of a jalapeno. Some of those things will start making your mouth water just thinking about them. And so the same thing will happen when you start smelling certain wines, it'll start making your mouth water. And if that's the case, a lot of times it means that it's going to be very high in acidity. Now, there's only a handful of wines that are going to be. Now, one other thing too, whenever you're talking about these things, kind of like we talked about sweet and dry, when you talk about high in acidity, there's only very, very few wines that are high in acidity. There could be moderate plus, but being very high in acidity, there's only a couple of varietals that will actually do that. So, when you're smelling this, it smells like it could potentially be sweet, but I don't see the fruit being the very first thing. To Nicholas's point, I do smell kind of an earthy mineral. To me, it almost smells like wet wool. So if you've ever had like a wool sweater and it starts to get wet, it kind of has a little bit of that funkiness going on.
Yeah, I don't smell any fruit.
So if there is, but there is definitely fruit to this. It's just hard to pick out, right? So here's the thing: is if you had like fresh dill and then you had dillweed, which one can you smell better? The fresh dill. I mean, the fresh dill will just kind of jump out at you. If you have fresh flowers or you have dried flowers, which one can you smell better? Fresh, exactly. Now here's the other thing: is if you had like stewed fruit. So like, let's say that we started stewing some cherries right now. They almost become candied in style. So there's three kind of ways that you can talk about it. It's going to be very fresh, it's going to be dry, or it's going to be almost stewed. And that stewed quality is where you start getting, where it's almost like overripe. So on this, it's going to be some kind of dried fruit because it's not that hard to pick up. Or excuse me, it is hard to pick up. And so you could also think about if something is underripe, so if something's super ripe, it's very easy to detect. So if you had a peach right now and you took a bite of a really ripe peach, you know, water starts going down your hand, it's a little bit softer, so it's beautiful. If you have an underripe peach, what's going to end up happening? It's a little bit harder, it's going to be a little bit tartar. So that, to me, there's an underripe quality to the fruit that's in this. So it does have maybe an underripe peach in this, or potentially an underripe apricot.
I'm thinking the pear a little bit.
Well, and here's the thing, is that maybe you start with that, and then when you taste it, and you go, okay, I thought it was pear, and then once I tasted it, I don't believe that that's what the case is. So, I can't guarantee if this is for you guys, but this is my first sip of the day. When you do have the first sip, what I want you guys to know is that it is going to be a little bit tart and acidic, the very first one. So what's going to happen is the second sip that you have, your palate actually adjusts, and it's going to be a better indicator of how it's going to taste. So, like I said, the very first one is a little, I mean, I can still taste my coffee, it's a little off. So now we're going to try it one more time.
Oh, it's delicious. Give me more.
So, on that second sip, what is the weight of this wine? It's light, okay? It has some tartness, so if it has some tartness to it, that means that it's a little underripe maybe, potentially. Is it mouthwater?
Yeah.
It's definitely mouthwater. I mean, I can feel it as I'm talking to you. I'm trying not to leak on you. I mean, it just feels like it's dripping down the side of my face.
I feel you.
So, is there a hint of sweetness in this?
A little bit.
But it's not overly sweet, but it definitely has that hint of sweetness. So, there are only a couple wines that are actually going to do that. But we'll get back to that. So let's go to wine number 2. So wine number 2, we said this has a little bit of an earthy minerality thing, but it's not going to be quite the same as the wine number 1.
This one smells a little sweet.
It smells a little petrol, like gasoline almost, which is something that you can actually see in wine. It's not necessarily a flaw or a bad thing, it's just certain areas have that. So sometimes if it's done like volcanic soils or something like that, you can kind of get that earthier smell to it as well.
Burnt toast?
Burnt toast. And so it's good to start using adjectives like that as well, because if that's what you're smelling, that's how you're going to understand it. Now, I don't know if you say burnt toast to a guest, maybe you figure a different way of actually saying that. But no, I mean, here's the thing, is that you'll see some people say with, like, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, that it can smell like cat pee. Because it actually does. Sometimes it has such a high ammonia smell to it that it smells like cat pee. So, there's also times where you'll actually taste some wines that, for the best way of terminology, would call it barnyard, and not the good kind of barnyard, you know. Yeah, it smells like manure. Some of them do. Now this one is not, so let's go back. Let's get back on track here.
Side note.
Yeah. So, is the fruit prevalent on this one? I mean, there's some fruit, but it's hard to smell once again. So you said it smells oaky. So what is oak smells?
Wood. Bark.
So wood, bark, those are. So if you're doing French oak typically is going to have baking spices. So you would have cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, vanilla. If you have American oak, it is going to have the smell of Hawaiian tropic suntan lotion. It can smell like coconut. It can smell like dill. Now, probably the best way to describe oak, just so that we're all on the same page. Let's say that we were drinking hot tea right now, and I had a mint hot tea in my hand. Very first time that we have it, you're going to taste all those flavors of mint. If I steep it the second time, it's going to be maybe about a third of that flavor. If I steep it the third time, it's going to be about a tenth of the flavor. If I did it fourth, fifth, sixth, it's going to be less, to the point where all you're going to have is hot water with maybe just little hints of green. And so oak treatment is the exact same way. If you have new French oak, or if you have new American oak, it's going to impart way more flavor. And as they use it time and time again, it becomes to where they will call it neutral oak. And if it's neutral oak, it's going to just kind of impart it. It's going to hold it, and it's going to potentially give it just a slight tinge to it, but it's not going to really impart a whole lot of flavor to it. So in a case like that, if you are smelling oak, I don't really smell the vanilla. I don't really smell the, so it's possible that it could be in neutral oak, where it is still holding it, it's still giving it a little bit of a richness, but it isn't imparting those flavor profiles. Now, one other thing to make it even a little bit more confusing, there's a thing called lees. Lees are the dead yeast cells. So what they end up doing is they just kind of are sitting there floating on the in the tank, essentially. So they have this huge spoon, and they essentially stir it. And so that's, if you ever see on a bottle it says Sir Lee, what that means is they are stirring up the dead yeast cells. By doing that, what happens is it ends up giving a creamy quality to the wine without actually imparting oak. Now, some of them will actually have oak and Sir Lee, so it's going to be super kind of rich and creamy in style.
Right before he said stirring up the yeast, it's
Lees. So it's lees. So L-E-E-S is lees. Lees are the dead yeast cells. And so they end up using a big spoon and they essentially stir those. And by stirring them, it's going to give a rich kind of creamy style to the wine without adding oak to it. So it's possible they're using lees as opposed to using oak as well, which is something that we'll find out in a little bit.